Hello, welcome to Bite-Sized QI Measuring for Improvement. This video focuses on statistical process control charts, often referred to as SPC charts. My name is Bridget Brown, and I am the Senior Improvement Facilitator here at CLCH. The aim of this session is to introduce SPC charts as a method to measure improvement. And what I'd like you to take away from this video is to recognize the value of SPC charts in everyday practice. I'd also like you to have an awareness of the core concepts of SPC, including the central line and control limits. I'd like for you to have an awareness of the 5 rules we use in order to identify special cause variation. At CLCH, we use a web-based system called LifeQI, which all staff can access. On LifeQI, you can easily create SPC charts, so you don't need to know how to analyze or create these charts, as the system will do it for you. What you will need is access and your raw data. There is more information about how to access LifeQI on our hub page. If you haven't already, I would recommend that you watch the videos on variation and run charts before watching this one, as they form a good foundation for this particular video. So let's talk about SPC charts. They start out in a very similar way to run charts, in that they have a horizontal line, which is used to plot chronological data over time. In this example, months, but it could be days or weeks. They then have a vertical line, focusing on a measure or topic of interest. This is typically numbers or percentages, but as with run charts, this could be currency. We then add data over time, and join this data using a line. So what's different between SPC and run charts? Well, that's the next 2 steps. On run charts, the central line uses the middle value, the median. The central line on an SPC chart uses the mean, so the average value. The average is calculated by adding up all the data on this chart and then dividing by the number of data points. A second difference between run charts and SPC charts are these 2 red lines here, called control limits. So we have an upper and lower control limit. These are equal distance apart from the mean. The control limits are calculated by looking at the variation in relation to the mean. The more variation, the further the upper and lower control limits will be from the mean. And if there is less variation, then the closer or narrower these control limits will be. The good news here is that you don't need to remember how control limits are calculated, as LifeQI will plot these for you. The most important thing is the next step, and that's interpreting these charts using the 5 rules. Before we start to talk about the rules, I want you to make a note that the rules for interpreting run charts are different to the rules for interpreting SPC. In this video, we are talking about the rules for interpreting SPC. And again, if you are using LifeQI, the system will support you with this and will flag these rules for you at the top of your chart. You'll see them indicated with little pink dots. The first rule may seem familiar. This is a trend. But please note that this is different to a trend in a run chart. In an SPC chart, we are looking for 6 or more consecutive points heading in the same direction. So 6 or more consecutive points increasing, or 6 or more consecutive points decreasing. This signals a trend. The second rule is a shift. Again, this is similar but different to run charts. On an SPC chart, the shift is 8 or more consecutive points above or below the mean. So we are looking for 8 or more points all in a row, either above or below the mean. This indicates a shift. The third rule is new. This is an astronomical point. An astronomical point is any point sitting outside the red lines. So any data point sitting outside the control limits signals an astronomical point. If we look at this chart, we can see that in February, there was an astronomical point above the control limit. These are the 3 most common rules you will see. The next 2 are more nuanced, and again, these would automatically be shown to you in LifeQI. The fourth rule is that 2 out of 3 consecutive points are close to the control limit. And you can see them indicated here, circled in blue. There are 2 data points within 1 standard deviation of the upper control limit. 2 out of 3 consecutive points are close to the control limit. The 5th rule is 15 or more consecutive points within 1 standard deviation from the mean. You can see here the data points are close to the mean on either side. In this chart, if we look at the whole chart, we have a lot of variation, and then we have these 15 or more points hugging closely to the mean, and this is an indication of special cause. So let's look at a project and some data in action. This is a project on blood culture contamination rates within a hospital. The team completed 3 Plan, Do, Study, Act or PDSA cycles. So, in this hospital, blood contamination rates were high. National guidance indicates they should be below 3%, and the hospital had blood contamination rates of 4.5%. The first PDSA was to raise the profile of the problem. Clinicians didn't know that contamination rates were considered high, so the improvement team worked to share contamination results at a local level. In the second PDSA, the team used data to inform which teams were considered to be the worst offenders, so that the team knew where to focus their improvement efforts. The third PDSA was started following staff feedback. Staff said there weren't enough wipes and getting things from the treatment room was frustrating, so the new blood culture pack was developed, and this meant that staff had access to everything they needed in one place. So let's look at the data from their project. What we have here is their SVC chart, and we can see clearly from the title that this is blood culture contamination rate. The chart shows the data across the whole project, spanning from week 1 to week 28. And we can see that the blood culture contamination rate is around 4% on average. We know this from looking at the center line. What I'd like you to do now is pause the video and see if there is any special cause variation. Can you see any of the 5 rules that we have discussed? Did you see any special cause variation? So we are looking for a trend, a shift, an astronomical point. Are there 2 out of 3 consecutive points in the outer third, or 15 or more consecutive points in the inner third? In this case, there is only one type of special cause variation, and we can see that here. This is a shift. So a shift is 8 or more points below the center line. There is no trend, astronomical point, or any of the other rules shown. So what does the shift mean? In this case, it shows us that there has been a statistically significant reduction in the contamination rate. And once we have a statistically significant reduction, we would now rebase the mean. And LifeQI will do this for you. You can now see that the blood contamination rates have statistically reduced, and the team will now work on continuing with this improvement. So just a reminder that LifeQI will help you with SVC charts. All you need is your raw data. Once it's been put onto the LifeQI system, LifeQI will flag any SVC rules for you. There is more information about how to access the system on our hub page, and you can also always contact the QI team for advice and guidance.